I teach creativity in business school. You can teach people how to be creative. So original intelligence is actually the first metric that puts humans back into the value chain, but also provides a metric that we can all use to improve and stay ahead. And that's how it differs from creativity measurements or IQ or other things that float around, or empathy, which is also highly important, by the way.
Hey, Guy Powell here, and welcome to the next episode of the Backstory on Marketing and AI. And if you haven't already done so, definitely please visit ProRelevant.com and download all of these episodes and podcasts. I think you will find them very interesting and definitely helpful in your everyday work. As you know, I am the author of the upcoming book, The AI Marketing Machine. And I've got some really cool stuff about to be launched on the new site. Book isn't done yet, but it is incredibly close. But stay tuned and you'll see some really cool stuff. And I think you'll find the book overall to be very interesting. And of course, you can find that at marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. Today, I'm interviewing Jonathan Aberman, and he is the CEO of Hupside. And that is a platform which measures original intelligence to help organizations thrive in the AI era. He's a 25-year plus venture capital veteran, policy advisor, former professor, and has helped launch over 40 tech companies and is a frequent media contributor on innovation and leadership. Wow, what a great background. Jonathan, welcome. So good to have you.
Before we go any further, a quick pause. This is important. Your sales force is one of the most expensive investments in your company. The real question isn't who's likely to buy someday, it's who should be called right now to create the most value. Traditional propensity models tell you who might convert. Our prescriptive modeling, called COPA, tells you who will convert because you called them. If you manage a large sales organization and want higher conversion, bigger deals, and better use of every rep hour, let's talk. If you want your sales team focused on the calls that matter most, visit prescriptivemodeling.prorelevant.com and set up a short strategy session.
You know, my mother used to say I just couldn't hold a job. But it is true that, if you live long enough, things start to be coherent. But look, I'm glad to be on your show because there are a few places in society now where the interplay between artificial intelligence and human behavior, the playing field and the cross section in marketing, advertising, and consumption, how those things get resolved, I think, is going to really dictate the future of our society in a lot of ways. So, hats off to you for writing about it, and I'm just thrilled to be here with you today.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you weren't kidding. I think I mean it has already made so many inroads into just about everything in our daily lives. And I can't imagine, what it's going to be like next year and the following and even the 10 years from now. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your background. What's your backstory on AI and marketing?
So, my backstory is I've been around innovation and entrepreneurship basically my entire life. I grew up as the child of two family business owners, and naturally, as my career progressed, I became more and more interested in technology. I started out owning one of the first IBM PCs in London when I was a banker in London. I've been around this for a long time. And um, AI clearly is just the next iteration of software. And software has been, as Mark Andreessen said, eating the world for a long time. And so naturally, as I lived my life as an educator, a business school dean for a while, and as an investor, you couldn't be involved without being involved in AI. It was an emergent thing. And when the LLM explosion happened a couple of years ago, it really started to play out in both my educational experience as a dean, but also my investment activities. And that's how I came to it. I'm very deep into it. And the company, Hupside, happened because I ran across a couple of professors locally, one at Georgetown and one at Washington Lee, who together had invented an objective way to measure human performance
Hmm.
as a relative measurement against AI performance. And it was objective, it wasn't subjective. And I got so excited about that, I decided to leave everything else behind and start a company around the technology with them and another co-founder. And that's what Hupside does. I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but it's all around the issue of, in a world where AI sameness is everywhere and where it's easy to create content, how are you going to differentiate your value add? And that is essentially important for proper deployment of AI. But frankly, it's also essentially important for your world and your listeners, which is how do we engage in behavior that will cause breakthrough, will cause people to consume, be influenced, and otherwise engage, which is what marketing is. And how do you do that in a world where literally somebody with a keyboard can create content? And the answer is, to me, it's an originality. So it all comes together in a massive collision. And that's why I'm interested in AI and that's why I'm interested in marketing. I mean, look, this is marketing today. You and I are talking. I'm marketing so people learn about my idea. There's marketing, frankly, is a core competency of any successful entrepreneur. They may not think about it that way, but at the end of the day, marketing is getting people to do what you want. If you're not able as an entrepreneur to get people to do what you want, you're not going to be an entrepreneur for very long. You're going to have a very expensive hobby.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You're so right. And sorry, I'm going to go off on a tangent, but I remember early on in my consulting days, I met with this founder. He was a tech, founder, and he said, "Guy, I don't need this marketing. You just get me people to come in the door, and I'll sell them." And I said, "Okay, well, let me get your mother in here. Let's see if she'll buy your stuff." And he goes, "Oh, well, wait a minute now. So all of the stuff that marketers do, and pricing, obviously, and product, but segmentation and reasons to believe and what have you. It was totally foreign to him. He just said, just get him in the door and I'll sell him. So anyway,
Mhm.
though, I like your point about sameness, and it's definitely going to be a challenge. So tell us a little bit about what that means for a company and the risks it faces with that sameness.
Well, you first have to go and buy into a shared view with me and other people, which is that there's a lot of science now that shows that the large language models, the way they're architected and how they are deployed, they definitionally create homogeneity of information. That's what they do. And you and I might look at an output and say, oh, that's novel. And the reality is it's not novelty, it's shared novelty. It's available to everyone. So that creates enormous implications for, frankly, any knowledge worker in any knowledge industry. Because in a world where you can generate stuff that's the same, a couple of bad things happen. The first thing that happens is we are just covered in a sea of nonsense. I mean, LinkedIn, God help us. I mean, it's a sea of nonsense now with little kernels of goodness, but you have to read 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 paragraphs generated by somebody with Claude to get the two things that 3 years ago they used to do two sentences and be done. So that's number one. The second one, which is much more insidious, is that there's demonstrable research that shows that sameness in AI and over-reliance on AI causes cognitive decline. It actually, to be blunt, makes people stupider. It makes them intellectually lazier. And so we have this really interesting dynamic now in our world where some of us are so overcome with the efficiency gains of AI that we approach it like it solves all problems. We approach it like it's determinative, will always be the next big thing. I mean, look what's going on in the stock market now. It's like, oh my God, Claude's got a new capability. Software is out of business. Oh my God, AI is not determinative. It's a technology, just like calculators and computers. It's what we do with it. And to me, that's what the crossroads is. We have an opportunity. You and me and everybody else watching, we have an opportunity to use these tools to stand out. Now, the third thing I'll say to you is that what's not being discussed right now is that we're in the middle of a bubble of sameness where there's a monoculture of, oh yeah, AI all the time. LLMs are going to eventually think. And you know what? Here's the problem. If everybody uses the tools the same way, everybody's going to get the same output. So if everybody's getting the same output, how's business going to generate margin and profit? The answer is they're not. So before long, smart people, smart businesses are going to realize they need people who can create authentic, actionable, engaging, and original content of all sorts because humans are going to consume that. So, the quote internet bubble ended. The AI bubble of it solves all problems will end. But I think what's going to emerge, the good news is, I think for many of your listeners and watchers, the good news is that in the long run, what you know how to do, what I know how to do, what HubSpot enables, we're gonna be relevant and highly relevant to smart businesses and smart business leaders. But it's perverse to me that at the moment that's almost a contrary view. But
Yeah.
I don't mind being a contrarian, I guess.
No, and I think you're right too. One thing that I think that people don't realize with LLMs and statistics in general is that everything tends towards the mean. When you're doing
Hmm.
statistics, you're kind of looking at the averages and you're ignoring the outliers. And so in reality, then what LLMs are doing is they are generating averages, which is kind of what your answer is in terms of creating sameness. And
Yeah.
but I will admit I'm a little bit scared about whether my intelligence is now declining. I'm sure it is.
Well,
It,
I'm willing to bet not. And I'll encourage you after we get off the call, go take the OIQ challenge on our website. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to see what your archetype is. But I'm willing to predict that what you're going to find is that you're a connector and expander. And why is because you're clearly somebody, because of what you do and how you orient, who takes concepts and connects them together to come up with new things. One of the things that our technology does is it surfaces the relative performance of people against baseline and atypical AI. So you can actually see how well somebody does at driving the idea space above baseline AI. And you know, a lot of people outperform AI. And that's one of the neat things about this test. A lot of them outperform in coming up with original answers. And there's something that you mentioned earlier, which I want to make sure we highlight. LLMs create sameness, but LLMs try to create novelty. That's what we call hallucinations, right? It's like, and the reason we call it hallucinations is because humans have the contextual understanding to be able to recognize when something's, quote, wrong. What we're really talking about is information only is valuable and has salience, meaning if it's valuable to a human observer. And to me, the big thing about LLMs is A, it devalues the quality of originality, but B, it suggests that ultimately salience in a human mind doesn't matter. And I think that's the part, if you're really scared, that's what you're really scared about, is that we all buy into this narrative, which is not true, that only thing that determines salience is an engine generated information. And I mean, honestly, that's what the company's about, and that's why we're talking today, and that's why we got to keep talking about it, because humans matter as consumers of information as much as they matter as the creators of information.
Quick pause. This is important for any marketing leader. Marketing must continuously prove its value or the budgets dry up. Marketing mix models provide that proof in a way finance and leadership can believe. And we at ProRelevant help teams answer critical questions. Which campaigns actually worked? Which channels really moved the needle? And where should the next dollar go? With over 20 years of experience across complex marketing environments, we know how to deliver clarity, not guesswork. To learn more, go to mmm.prorelevant.com and set up a short strategy session. And now, back to the podcast.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you used the term this term original intelligence, and that I'd like to know more about that and what that means in terms of the value that it places on generating AI answers, but also now how original intelligence is valuable in I guess what we'll call the AI era.
Absolutely. Well, original intelligence is a new category that, we defined and invented because what we realized was that every standard test or assessment or any sort of tool that's being used to identify the human ability to create something new had a fundamental flaw now, which is they could all be cheated by AI. I mean, they're all rubrics. They all could be cheated. So you needed to have a test, a platform that could actually evaluate the outcome of somebody engaging in an activity. And so what we do that's unique is instead of saying, oh, is somebody creative or not? What we're saying is, what's the output? So that if somebody uses an AI to create something novel, that's just as valuable as somebody who does it on their own. Or, if you want to be religious or spiritual, somebody who hears God's voice and just comes up with something new. We don't we don't care. Original intelligence is the outcome of the process of creating novelty. And I think that's the biggest thing about original intelligence. It gives us an objective measurement that we can point to. So here's an example. A couple of months ago, I was doing a panel with one of my co-founders, and he's an expert in cognition. And he said on the panel, he said, um, I can tell you that there are 20 different ways that the brain fires, some pathways in the brain for how people are creative. I can tell you creativity is a biometric thing. And this poor woman who was an artist on the panel got really angry with him and said, "How can you say that? God gives us creativity." And my co-founder turned to her and said, "Listen, I'm not telling you anything other than I can tell you how a Ferrari works. I'm not telling you how it's beautiful." And I just, and I love that. And that's what the company is about.
Mm,
It's we don't care how you get there. What we care about is that when you go to work every day, when you live your life, however you get there, are you providing something that's objectively, deterministically different? And that's what original intelligence measures, that performance. And so it's scary, I suppose. It's like, oh my God, what if I don't outperform LLMs in the task? But it's also empowering to know that you do outperform because most people do. And if you don't, the great thing about original intelligence is you can actually, unlike OIQ or IQ, it doesn't say the same for your entire life. You can actually improve your creativity. I teach creativity in business school. You can teach people how to be creative. So original intelligence is actually the first metric that puts humans back into the value chain, but also provides a metric that we can all use to improve and stay ahead. And that's how it differs from creativity measurements or IQ or other things that float around, or empathy, which is also highly important, by the way.
mm. Well, it's interesting that you're saying that it changes over time. But I could imagine, one of the challenges with that and creativity is, how is if you're running a business and obviously you want to have creativity and you want to, cultivate that, and yet quite often, the creativity is just, hey, let me get it to the keyboard fast and I'll ask
Mhm.
Claude or Chat GPT and see what it comes up with. And it's funny. I was in a kind of a mini brainstorming sessions, and we were putting ideas up on the board, little post-it notes. And one of the women there, she was just typing stuff into Chat GPT, and I was sitting there, and I don't know. I said, I'm not going to use Chat GPT. Let's just come up with some new stuff. And first of all, that was a big deal. The second thing, though, that was interesting, and actually, the moderator was not happy with me. Everybody was writing their post-it notes where the glue was on the top, and I purposefully wrote mine with the glue on the side.
Uh-huh.
And she says, "Guy, will you stop doing that?"
It could have been worse. You could have written them in Crayola on the wall. I mean, look.
Yeah, I know, or I could have done it with the bottom, So.
No, I was going to say that you made it. I want to unpack something because originality, original intelligence comes in different flavors. So let's start with this. There are two fundamental drivers for human behavior. One is the desire for safety, and the other is desire for novelty. We're wired up that way. It's instinctive. We seek novelty, we consume novelty, we value novelty, we want to be special. I mean, it's everywhere in our psyche. But how we seek novelty is very much determined by our personality types. So, for example, people who are focal under our rubric are people who use their originality just to get stuff done. Your point of coming to work and just pounding the keyboard. They're hyper focused. They're like, all right, what do I have to do today to get my stuff done? That's still creative. That's still objectively originality. It's just a particular type. Whereas, we think about people who are hyper creative, they're expanders in our rubric. Why? Because they are always pushing the idea space. Well, that's a different type of creativity. You know, I was on another show a couple of weeks ago, and I'm a guitarist, I'm a musician, and somebody asked me, the difference, and I said, look, Eddie Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix never took a lesson in their lives. They expanded the music of guitars like nobody else. They were incredible. But I can go into a bar and hear a really good blues guitar player sound exactly like B.B. King, sound exactly like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and that's a different type of originality. That's the originality
Yeah.
being focal and being focused on. And so, to your question, the key for all of us as business owners or consultants or whatever is that we need to understand how and why, in the particular role we're in, what the originality is required of us, right? When you go to a client and start, yeah, I can do this, do that. It's like, shut up, man. I need you to tell, how do I solve this problem? And that's what I mean. It's like if you think about original intelligence, it's what's our winning strategy in life? Because we all have winning strategies for how we get things. What's our winning strategy? Some people go in a dark room and just think stuff up. Some people make spreadsheets and just grind it out. That's our winning strategy. What the surfaces over time is what's your winning strategy? So you can match up with the right job, you can match up with the right level of responsibility. And frankly, people are happier because they're in places where they're able to do the things they want to do. You follow me? So that's
Yeah.
why originality is so, to me, is really the secret sauce, not just in pushing back against the AI narrative, but to me also helping people really understand themselves so they can have happier lives and careers.
So I guess the question though is, and I have an answer to it, but the question to you then is, can AI develop original ideas?
So AI will be able to generate, quote, original ideas without question, because look, it's already being used, for example, in drug discovery. There are different places where it provides unique insights. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't. What I'm suggesting is that all things being equal, most people aren't using AI well enough to generate true original output. Because in order to get really original output out of AI, you have to really, really treat it like an assistant and you have to really drive it. It doesn't give you that level of originality if you use it lazily. I can see this myself. Look, I use Claude, I use Notebook LM, I use all of them, but I don't use them like, oh, what do you think? I mean, I drive it hard and and so what I'm suggesting to you is that that process of getting originality out of an AI is just as valuable from the standpoint of original intelligence as somebody who does it on their own. I'm not a carbon chauvinist, right? What I am is that I'm trying to acknowledge AIs in the world. Am I using it well? But the last thing I'll say to you is that most of the time when AI is generating originality, it doesn't know whether it's salient or not. It doesn't know if it's right or wrong. It just knows that based upon the string of information and going through the gonculator, this is a different output. To me, which comes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is what matters in our society, as long as humans are spending the dollars, is what do humans feel about the output? What salience do we give it? And so, yes, I think LLMs can generate originality, but I think humans ultimately determine whether or not it's useful.
Well, that's true, but I also now have to get gonkalator.com as one of my domain names.
This is what I do. Look, I grew up in Philadelphia. This is just what you do in Philadelphia, I guess, Gray. You make up words.
Yeah,
It's a
I guess
thing, maybe. I don't know.
so. Well, but one thing though, and I don't know if this is a pushback or an agreement, is when quite often, well, sometimes you hear there are no original ideas. There
Mm,
are just ideas from other areas that are now applied to a different area. And so sometimes when you think about, how do I solve this problem? How do I solve this problem? And for me in marketing, I'm trying to do something, let's say in healthcare, and I look over and I read an article on consumer packaged goods, and I go, aha, how can I
mhm,
apply that idea or that methodology over to healthcare? And all of a sudden, I've got something that might be novel in
mhm,
healthcare, but technically the idea isn't new. It's just
mhm.
been reapplied. And I think, and I don't know, do you think AI can use that, or when I'm prompting it, can I use that to really come up with something that's maybe original for healthcare, although it's not necessarily original for consumer packaged goods?
Well, first of all, I've been investing as a venture capitalist for about 25 years now, and I can tell you I rarely see an original idea from the standpoint of a business. Most ideas are not what you would call, quote, original, but at the end of the day, the successful businesses, the successful ideas, it's all around that little nuanced twist, that little difference in execution that makes the difference, right? So this comes back to the definition of original intelligence. Truly expansive thinking happens sometimes, but focal and augmenter and connector behavior happens on a daily basis. What you just described is connective behavior. It's taking a domain of knowledge and it's finding places, information elsewhere, making associations, connecting it to create something new. That's original intelligence. That is novel. That is meaningful. What you just described is it's a behavior, it's a pattern. I said earlier, I'm willing to bet you're a connector or an expander, probably connector expander. Now I'm even more convinced. But when you cut through it all, you as a human being have this instinctive ability that you developed over experience to be able to learn by analogy. to make associations and then to apply your contextual understanding, your experience, and your gut about what would move a human. So don't shortchange that. All those things are actually manifestations of originality. And maybe that's the bottom line is for me, if we have a cult on originality being Jimi Hendrix, then that devalues the 10,000 other great guitarists who show up at bars and play perfect notes. They're
Mm,
all creative. In our society of 300 million and so odd people, every one of us solves problems every day using our seeking for novelty. And it's a question of degree, it's a question of how, it's a question of opportunity. But at the end of the day, what you just described to me is something that it will be a long time before AI is able to do with the same level of sophistication or the same level of instinct and empathy and gut that a human has. That may be fundamentally one of the things that we're going to be best at, which is what you just described. There's no probabilistic model.
mm.
I mean, it's like, I got to solve this client problem. What over my 20-year, 30-year career, what did I do that was sort of like this? Oh, plastics. Oh, yeah, I sold plastics to McDonald's. Oh, yeah. Well, what does it have to do with selling a biologic to a grocery store? Well, how would you prompt for that? Right? How would you prompt for that and say, "Hey, ChatGPT, I've got a You couldn't, and because you can't, so that's my point. But maybe you would get to the point where you'd be like, "Hey, Chat, analogize to plastics to selling stuff to McDonald's. You're the one making that logical leap, not Chat." So
Mm.
that's why I.
Fair enough, and I think it is possible or probable that it is how you develop the prompts, and so that is then the intelligence, so to speak, and I will admit, there is a speed to getting your answer. So even though you may have kind of the germination of an idea on how to apply, in my example, CPG to healthcare, and then I can go into ChatGPT and say, now how can I do this? Blah, 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 blah. And then what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And all of a sudden, I've got a more or less fully baked idea that might have taken me a couple of days, and I'm now
Mhm.
done in, let's say, an hour. So it definitely speeds things along and makes that part of it much more efficient. So what do you see as yeah, and I don't know, maybe that kind of touches on where AI is driving efficiency because I think it is. It's definitely taking the
Definitely.
mundane and reducing a lot of that mundane tasks into a couple of prompts and a couple of spreadsheets, and boom, you get your answer.
Mhm.
So how though how do companies though kind of stand out? What can they do to stand out right now? Whereas using AI, whereas others are really just looking at it as improving their efficiency and getting tasks done.
Well, so my view of the world, or my HubSite's view of the world, is that what's happened with AI is we've changed the technology stack for a business. And in that, now you've got basically you have your technology stack, you've got your cyber stack, you've got your AI stack, and then you have original intelligence. Original intelligence is actually a layer in your business process. It is, frankly, where a good chunk of your differentiation and your margin improvement is going to come from. If everything becomes more efficient, that drives down expense. But if you have no pricing power because you're a commodity, you're not going to make much money. So the answer is that every business process, every part of the value chain is going to have a mix of those four. So there are places where, as you say, efficiency is the most important thing. Like for example, a call center or having, really good chatbots to manage customer relations. I think that is an area where there's enormous potential for efficiency gains. But the smart business owner, I think, or the smart company will say, well, wait a minute. At the end of the day, humans like consuming my stuff. Maybe I need to have a couple humans involved in this process so that when the machine comes up with an answer that the human doesn't like, they can talk to a human. Maybe if I'm using this efficiency to throughput 1,000 cases of an hour, I can have humans deal with the five elevations in a more compassionate way, increasing customer satisfaction. Or perhaps if I'm in the C-suite and I've got lots of people generating lots and lots of stuff for me really, really quickly, that gives me more time as a senior leader to take a step back and actually think about the strategy of my business. because it creates more white space during the course of my day. So to me, the difference between where we are running at right now and where I think we ultimately end up is where we're running at right now is efficiency is all that matters. And any place we can find efficiency in the value chain, we use AI. And what I'm saying is, yes, I agree, but understand that differentiation and profit, unless you're a monopoly, monopolies can win in a commoditized business. That's fine,
Yeah.
but there aren't going to be that
Yeah.
many monopolies with pricing power. Everybody else is going to have to put the trousers on one leg at a time and fight it out. And where are they going to find profit? Differentiation. That's where most businesses are going to make their money. And the great thing about AI efficiency is if you use it well, it frees up people to do the stuff that will create the value add. Now,
Mhm.
listen, will we have as many people working in these companies as we did 3 years ago? Maybe not. I think it's going to raise the bar. I'm not going to lie. It's going to raise the bar on what you have to do to be successful. I think original intelligence is going to become more and more important. However, I am enough of an optimist to say if we have a free market economy where monopolization doesn't occur, what we learned from mechanization in the 1800s, we learned from computerization in the 1970s and 80s, is that if you have a lot of ability for small businesses to start and compete, jobs do get created in small businesses. So net for me is um, I'm optimistic if we have an environment where we allow people to truly compete.
Yeah, well, and I agree with that. One slight nuance to what you're saying, though, and that is, I think whether you're, just a cost-driven company and trying to be low-cost provider, or whether you're trying to be even slightly differentiated, whatever your competition is, if you are able to drive efficiency faster than the competition, you are also going to succeed and grow a lot faster than the competition. So, the differentiator is not necessarily having an incredible new idea. It's can also be just being faster at driving efficiency because, you're going to get costs down or you're going to get innovation cycles faster or whatever it happens to be. And that I think is also an opportunity for AI to drive the value of a company.
100%. And I think that one of the interesting phenomenons about capitalism as it's manifested in with public markets is that if you're a large company in particular, there are rewards in being the first mover in efficiency because you do get margin capture until and then you're gambling that you crush the competition and they don't catch up. It's a winner take all view. So yes, I think that efficiency can provide the sugar rush of margin improvement. My hypothesis is that long term, it's like Hunger Games. At some point, there aren't that many people left. At some point, everybody still standing is equally efficient. And so that's number one. Number two, what we see time and again, I mean, the venture capital industry is a great example of this. What we see time again is that smaller teams iterate and innovate faster than larger organizations. And one of the
Mm,
interesting things about AI is that because it provides a lot of baseline knowledge quickly, we may actually see industries disrupted by small teams using AI. They talk about, the first billion-dollar company with one guy or one gal. It's a little bit extreme. So anyway, yes, AI is efficient, but even there, remember, there's an original intelligence layer, which is the consultant, the CIO, the CISO, and everybody else who builds the business model who takes advantage of it. There's an art
yeah.
form to deploying AI well and governance well. There's still a need for human expertise, even if you're chasing efficiency. Look, we know from our technology, if you just throw the tools at people and say use them, only about 10% will. Those are your expanders. Everybody else is
Yeah.
like, well, what's in it for me? It's a question of degree. There's a reason why AI transformations aren't generating the ROI when you're giving it to people to execute, and why it's only generating ROI when you're using it to fire people. We're not surprised. We can see it in the data, but it's a complex situation, and you know, there's no one size fits all. It's a great tool. Computers are a great tool. Calculators are a great tool. The wheels have been wonderful for all of us. But tools on their own are just tools. It's what we do with them that matters.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, fair enough. And I could go on here
Yeah,
with
it's
you
been
for a
fun.
long time yet, but I'm going to have to kind of cut it short there. But I do have one last question, and that is, what advice would you give an up and coming new marketer?
So I think going back to what we've been talking about for the last half hour or so, I think the most important thing for any of us now is to understand our originality, how we do it, understand our competency, meaning do we like being truly expansive? Do we like being focal? Do we like augmenting? What drives us? Because at the end of the day, if you know what drives you, then you can find a way to use that winning strategy to succeed. That's number one. Number two, without question now, any young person who doesn't avidly use Gen AI tools as an assistant, not as a substitute, but as an assistant, and hasn't and develops the ability to drive it and not take an easy answer, those are the people that are going to differentiate. As far as marketing goes, I think it's rapidly emerging that experiential authenticity, differentiation are going to matter more and more and more and more. The more that AI commoditizes experience, the more people are going to crave authenticity. So if I was going to go into
Hmm.
marketing, I would say to myself, I need to know myself and I need to understand people more than I probably did 3 or 5 or 10 years ago. Don't let the technology blind you from the fundamental truth that empathy is probably the best marketing skill you can have, without question.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much. This has been awesome, and I really would love to go on for another hour or so, but we're going to cut it right there. So, where can folks learn more about you and your company?
Well, I'd love for you to go to our website, upside humanupside.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, follow me there. And while you're at the website, take a moment and try it out. We have the OIQ challenge where you can try it in 5 minutes. You can find out your own archetype, or if you want, we have a version of our product that you can try out with up to 10 people for free. Give it a try. It's all about the movement. It's all about getting people to find their original intelligence.
Well, fantastic. Well, I'm definitely going to do that as soon as we get
Terrific.
off here. I'm looking forward to find out whether I'm an expander, I think you said, or a connector, or a focal,
I
or
think you're a
whatever.
connector expander. So if you're not, call me. I'll send you $20.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a deal.
All right.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, for the audience, definitely stay tuned for many other videos in this series on the backstory of AI and marketing, and definitely go to marketingmachine.prorelevant.com and find out more about my upcoming book, and stay tuned there because there's going to be some big changes coming. So, Jonathan, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, me too. It was a lot of fun. I hope to see you again soon. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.